The grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Hotel shimmered beneath a cascade of crystal chandeliers, their golden light bathing the room in an opulent glow. The city's elite mingled, their laughter and clinking glasses weaving a tapestry of wealth and influence. At the heart of it all stood Jonathan Blake, a man whose commanding presence had long made him a fixture in these circles. His sharp jawline and piercing blue eyes drew attention as effortlessly as his tailored tuxedo. But tonight, the air around him felt different, charged with an undercurrent of tension. By his hand clasped firmly in his, was Amara, his new wife, her elegance undeniable in a sleek black gown that hugged her curves. Her warm brown skin glowed under the lights, and her poised smile radiated quiet strength. Together, they were a striking pair, but the room's reaction to their entrance was anything but warm. As they stepped into the crowd, Jonathan felt the shift immediately. The usual nods of admiration were replaced by sidelong glances, some curious, others laced with something sharper disapproval, perhaps, or envy. Whispers slithered through the room, soft but venomous, like a breeze carrying the scent of a storm. Amara sensed it too, her grip on his hand tightening ever so slightly, but her expression remained serene, unshaken. She was no stranger to scrutiny, and tonight she wore her confidence like armor. Vanessa Reed, a queen bee among the city's socialites, glided toward them, her crimson dress trailing like a warning flag. Her smile was polished, practiced, but her green eyes betrayed her true feelings: cold, calculating, and unmistakably hostile. "Jonathan," she purred, extending a manicured hand, her gaze flicking to Amara with the precision of a blade. "And you must be Amara." The words dripped with false sweetness, her smile faltering just enough to reveal the disdain beneath. Jonathan took Vanessa's hand briefly, his voice warm but guarded. "Vanessa, meet my wife, Amara." He emphasized the word wife, a quiet assertion of his choice. Amara met Vanessa's gaze with a calm, unwavering smile, her posture regal. "A pleasure to meet you," Amara said, her voice smooth as silk, betraying none of the weight she felt from Vanessa's thinly veiled judgment. Vanessa's eyes swept over Amara, taking in her elegance, her poise, but there was no mistaking the flicker of contempt she tried to hide. "How charming," she said, her tone syrupy. "Jonathan, I must say, we were all surprised by the news. You kept this quite the secret." Her words hung in the air, sharp and probing, as if daring him to justify his choice. "We valued our privacy," Amara replied, her voice steady, her eyes never leaving Vanessa's. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for a crack in her composure. But Amara gave them nothing. Vanessa's smile tightened, her composure slipping for a fraction of a second. "Of course," she said, her gaze darting between them. "It's just such an unusual choice, Jonathan. But you've always been one to defy expectations." Jonathan's jaw clenched, but his smile held firm. "I follow my heart," he said, his eyes softening as they met Amara's. The warmth in his gaze was unmistakable, a silent declaration of his devotion. Vanessa's lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes narrowing almost imperceptibly. "Well, I suppose that's what matters," she said, her voice laced with condescension. "Though I imagine it'll take some time for everyone to adjust." Amara's smile didn't waver. "I'm sure they will," she said, her tone calm but resolute, meeting Vanessa's gaze with a quiet strength that left the other woman momentarily speechless. Before Vanessa could respond, another couple approached, and she seized the chance to escape. Her parting words, "enjoy the evening," delivered with a tight smile as she turned away, already whispering to her companions. As soon as Vanessa was out of earshot, Jonathan leaned closer to Amara, his voice low with concern. "Are you okay?" he asked, searching her face. Amara nodded, her expression composed but her eyes betraying a flicker of weariness. "I expected this," she said softly. "We knew it wouldn't be easy." Jonathan sighed, his gaze sweeping the room. More eyes were on them now, some subtle, others brazen. "They'll have to get used to it," he said, his voice firm. I'm not hiding who I am or who I love. Amara's lips curved into a small, grateful smile, and she squeezed his hand. Neither am I. They moved through the ballroom together, navigating a sea of polite greetings and veiled judgments. Each introduction followed the same pattern, a courteous nod to Amara, followed by a glance at Jonathan that seemed to question his sanity. The unspoken tension wrapped around them like a fog, but they pressed on, their heads high, refusing to let the weight of the room drag them down. By the time they reached the far end of the ballroom, Jonathan felt the growing distance between them and the crowd, as if an invisible wall had been erected. Then a familiar voice broke through the haze, warm, genuine, and welcome. Jonathan Marcus Lee, Jonathan's best friend and lawyer, stepped forward, his broad smile a stark contrast to the room's chilly reception. He clasped Jonathan's hand firmly before turning to Amara with a nod of respect. Amara, good to see you again. You too, Marcus, Amara replied, her shoulders relaxing at the sight of an ally. Marcus glanced around the room, his expression darkening. Quite the welcome, isn't it, he said, keeping his voice low. Jonathan frowned. Worse than I expected, he admitted, but I won't let them control our lives. Marcus nodded, his eyes approving. That's the spirit. They'll come around eventually, they'll have to. Amara's smile was faint but resolute. I hope so, she said softly. But I'm not naive. I know what's behind this. It's not just that we're different. It's that I'm not who they wanted me to be. Jonathan's expression hardened. They'll deal with it, he said, his voice unwavering. I won't let them tear us apart. Marcus clapped a hand on Jonathan's shoulder. Just watch your back. Vanessa's been stirring things up since she heard the news. She's not going to let this go quietly. I'll handle Vanessa, Jonathan said, his tone resolute. And anyone else who tries to come between us? They stood together for a moment, a united front against the hostilities swirling around them. The night wore on, the gala's glamour tainted by the undercurrent of prejudice. But as Jonathan and Amara left the hotel, heads held high, they knew their love was a fortress or strong enough to withstand whatever storm lay ahead. The dining room of Jonathan and Amara's sprawling mansion was a haven of warmth, its mahogany table set for six with fine china and flickering candles. The scent of roasted herbs and fresh bread filled the air, a stark contrast to the cold reception they'd endured at the gala. Tonight, their closest friends gathered for an intimate dinner. But the elegance of the setting couldn't mask the tension that hung over the group. Marcus Lee sat opposite Jonathan, his wife Claire beside him, her gentle demeanor a quiet counterpoint to the evening's unease. Across from them were Michael and Linda, longtime friends who'd stood by Jonathan through his meteoric rise in the business world. The group had shared countless evenings like this, but tonight, an unspoken weight settled over the table, as if everyone was bracing for a storm. The conversation started lightly. Work updates, travel plans, the latest headlines, but it felt forced, like a dance around a truth no one wanted to name. Finally, Marcus broke the silence, his voice steady but cautious. So, how was the gala, he asked, glancing at Amara with concern. Jonathan took a slow sip of his wine, his expression guarded. About what I expected, he said, plenty of fake smiles and even more whispering behind our backs. Claire leaned forward, her brow creasing with empathy. I'm so sorry, Amara, she said softly. That must have been hard. Amara's smile was polite but strained. It wasn't a surprise. She said, Dear, sit there. I knew there'd be pushback. Michael, who'd been quiet until now, leaned forward, his voice low but firm. Pushback. That's putting it lightly. Vanessa Reed's been on a mission. Jonathan, she's telling everyone how disappointed she is in you, trying to turn the whole social circle against you both. Jonathan's eyes darkened, but his voice remained steady. Vanessa can say what she wants. I don't need her approval, Linda interjected, her tone cautious. It's not just her. Though, you know how people follow her lead. If she keeps this up, it could make things tough professionally, socially, everything. Amara glanced at Jonathan, reading the tension in his jaw. We knew this wouldn't be simple, she said, addressing the table. But we didn't get married to please anyone else. We're ready for whatever comes. Her words hung in the air, a quiet declaration of their resolve. Marcus leaned back, his expression grave. You're right, but this isn't just gossip. I've heard murmurs from some board members. Jonathan, they're questioning your judgment, looking for ways to undermine you. Jonathan's jaw tightened, his voice firm. Let them try. I built my company from nothing. I'm not letting a bunch of bigots dictate my life. It's more than that, Marcus said, his tone measured. This isn't just about race, it's about power. Vanessa and her crowd see your marriage as a challenge to their control, and they'll fight dirty to protect it. Amara nodded, her voice quiet but resolute. We're shaking their world just by being us, but we're not backing down. Michael shifted uncomfortably. I don't want to sound pessimistic, but you need to be careful. People like Vanessa don't take kindly to being challenged, and they can get vicious. Jonathan's gaze softened as he looked at Amara. I know, he said, but we're in this together. As long as we've got each other, we can handle anything. Claire, who'd been listening quietly, spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. What you're doing is courageous, she said, but don't forget to look after yourselves. This kind of pressure can wear down even the strongest bonds. Amara reached for Jonathan's hand, her grip steady. We're strong enough, she said, her voice unwavering, and no one's going to come between us. The conversation lightened after that, drifting to safer topics, but the earlier weight lingered. As the candles burned low, a quiet resolve settled over the table. Jonathan and Amara knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they had allies, friends who'd stand by them through the storm. With love and determination as their shield, they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. Vanessa Reed's mansion buzzed with the energy of the city's elite, its sprawling gardens and ornate fountains a testament to her unrivaled status. The guest list for her latest gathering was as exclusive as ever, each invitation a coveted prize. But one couple was noticeably absent, Jonathan and Amara. In his study, Jonathan sat with the unopened mail, the lack of an invitation from Vanessa weighing heavily. It was no oversight, it was a deliberate message, a line drawn in the sand. Jonathan could feel the heat of anger simmering just beneath his skin, a slow burn fueled by more than just irritation. It was a profound frustration, sharp and cutting. This wasn't merely a social slight, it was a calculated move to cast him and Amara out, to make them feel like intruders in a world they'd fought to belong to. The sting of exclusion wasn't new, but Vanessa's deliberate campaign to isolate them felt like a blade twisted with precision. As the weight of it pressed down on him, Amara stepped into the room, her presence like a cool breeze on a sweltering day. She moved with quiet confidence, her eyes catching his as she crossed to where he sat, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. No invitation. I take it, she asked, her voice soft but steady, already knowing the answer. Jonathan shook his head, his jaw tight. Vanessa's making her play. Amara settled into the chair across from him, her expression thoughtful, a calm counterpoint to the storm brewing inside him. We saw this coming, she said, her tone measured. She's drawing a line in the sand, trying to shut us out of her little empire. Jonathan's eyes flickered with a mix of admiration for her composure and frustration at their situation. It's not just her world, he said, his voice low but firm. I've poured everything into building my place here. I'm not letting her or anyone push us aside. Amara's lips curved into a gentle smile, one that carried both warmth and resolve. I know, John, but we've got to play this smart. If we go head-to-head with her, we're just feeding her ego. She lives for the drama. Jonathan let out a heavy sigh, leaning back in his chair, the tension in his shoulders barely easing. You're right, but sitting here, doing nothing, it's eating at me. We're not doing nothing, Amara countered, her voice steady and reassuring. We're picking our fights. Right now, the best move is to rise above her games. Let her waste her energy on petty schemes while we keep moving forward. Just then, Jonathan's phone buzzed on the table, the sharp sound cutting through their conversation. He glanced at the screen, his brow furrowing as he read the message. It's Marcus. He's at Vanessa's party. Amara raised an eyebrow, curiosity piqued. What's he saying? Jonathan's voice tightened as he read aloud. Vanessa's making a show of our absence, playing the victim, telling everyone it's such a shame we've chosen to pull away from the group. Amara's eyes narrowed, a spark of indignation flashing in them. She's rewriting the story, painting us as the ones who walked away. Exactly, Jonathan said, frustration lacing every word, and she's doing it in front of all the right people. Amara leaned forward, her mind already working. Then we fight back, not by stooping to her level, but by showing we're unto midway through touchable. We keep living our lives, showing up to other events, proving we belong just as much as she does. Jonathan considered her words, the knot in his chest loosening slightly. You're right. We can't let her know she's getting under our skin. That evening, while Vanessa's lavish party pulsed with music and clinking glasses at her sprawling mansion, Jonathan and Amara made their own plans. They reached out to a handful of trusted friends, those who hadn't been swept into Vanessa's orbit, and invited them for a low-key gathering the following weekend. The guest list was intentional, a mix of people who valued authenticity over social posturing. When the weekend arrived, their home came alive with the warmth of laughter and easy conversation. The air was filled with the clink of glasses and the hum of shared stories, a stark contrast to the tension that had weighed on them all week. Amara moved through the room with effortless grace, her smile drawing people in, making every guest feel like they belonged. Jonathan watched her, his heart swelling with pride at how she navigated the evening, turning their home into a haven of connection. As the night unfolded, Marcus pulled Jonathan aside, a grin spreading across his face. You nailed this, he said, gesturing to the lively scene around them. Vanessa might have her grip on the old crowd, but you're building something real here. People see it, and they respect it. Jonathan nodded, a wave of relief washing over him. I just don't want to get dragged into her games, he said. We're better than that. And you're proving it, Marcus replied. Her tactics only work if you let them. By opening your home, welcoming people like this, you're showing you won't be pushed out. You're setting the rules now. Jonathan managed a small smile, grateful for Marcus's support. I just want to live my life without all this nonsense. Marcus chuckled, clapping him on the shoulder. You're in the wrong circle for that, my friend, but you're handling it like a pro, and people are taking notice. Amara joined them, slipping her arm around Jonathan's waist with a playful grin. What's this plotting world domination? Just strategizing, Marcus said with a wink. Jonathan's winning hearts and minds, one party at a time. Amara laughed, leaning into Jonathan. We're just being ourselves, she said, her voice light but resolute. If that's enough to show people who we really are, then it's worth it. As the evening wound down and their friends began to drift out into the night, Jonathan and Amara stood together in the quiet of their home, the glow of the evening still lingering. They had faced their first real challenge as a team and come through it with strength and poise. Jonathan looked down at Amara, his voice steady with conviction. We're going to be fine. Her eyes met his, shining with quiet confidence. We are, she said. No matter what they throw at us, we'll handle it together. In that moment, wrapped in each other's arms, they knew they'd made the right choice. They wouldn't let Vanessa or anyone else control their story. They would carve out their own space in this world, on their own terms, and no amount of exclusion or whispered lies would shake them. The office was Jonathan's refuge, a place where he could shape the future with every decision, where his vision for his company came to life. But that morning, as he stared at the pile of reports on his desk, a gnawing unease settled in his chest. The whispers that had plagued his social life were now creeping into his professional world, spreading like frost across a window pane. His assistant, Rachel, knocked softly and stepped inside, a folder in hand. Good morning. Mr. Blake, she said, setting the folder down. These are the reports you requested. Thanks, Rachel, Jonathan replied, forcing his focus onto the work. But Rachel lingered, shifting nervously, her hesitation palpable. Finally, Charlie, She cleared her throat. Sir, I don't mean to overstep, but there's something you should know. Jonathan looked up, catching the tension in her voice. What is it? Rachel leaned in slightly, her voice dropping to a near whisper. There's talk around the office. People are saying the board is questioning your leadership because of your marriage to Amara. Jonathan's expression darkened, though he fought to keep his anger in check. What exactly are they saying? Rachel glanced around, as if ensuring they were alone. It's vague, just rumors. Some board members are saying your personal life is clouding your judgment, that it's causing issues with clients and partners. Jonathan's hands gripped the edge of his desk, his knuckles whitening. And who's spreading this? Rachel looked uneasy, clearly wishing she hadn't brought it up. I'm not sure, sir, but it's picking up steam. I thought you should know. Thank you, Rachel, Jonathan said, his voice tight. You did the right thing. She nodded and slipped out, leaving Jonathan alone with his thoughts. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair as the weight of her words sank in. He didn't need to guess the source. Vanessa and her allies were behind this, poisoning his professional life just as they tried to tarnish his social standing. His phone buzzed, pulling him from his spiraling thoughts. It was a text from Amara. Lunch today, I'm craving Italian. A small smile broke through his tension as he typed back. Sounds perfect. Usual spot. A few hours later, Jonathan stepped into the cozy Italian restaurant where they often met. The warm aroma of fresh bread and herbs, a welcome contrast to the cold atmosphere of the office. Amara was already at their favorite corner table, a glass of water in hand. Her smile faded as she caught the storm in his eyes. What's wrong? She asked as he sat down. Jonathan exhaled heavily, gathering his thoughts. The rumors they're spreading to the office, people are saying the board's questioning my leadership because of us. Amara's expression hardened, a flicker of anger in her eyes. I knew Vanessa was vicious, but this, using our marriage to undermine you, that's a new low. Jonathan nodded, his voice low. She's trying to unravel everything I've built, and she's using us as the weapon. Amara reached across the table, her hand finding his, her touch grounding him. We knew this might happen, she said softly, but we can't let it shake us. We stay strong together. Jonathan squeezed her hand, drawing strength from her unwavering calm. I know, but the thought that my personal life could be twisted like this, it's infuriating. Amara leaned back, her mind already strategizing. Is there anyone on the board you trust? Someone who could give you the inside scoop? Marcus, Jonathan said without hesitation. He's always had my back. I'll talk to him, see what he's heard. Good, Amara said, nodding. And in the meantime, we keep doing what we do. We don't let them think they're winning. Their food arrived, but the conversation stayed heavy, circling the challenges that seemed to grow with each passing day. As they ate, Jonathan's phone buzzed again. It was Marcus. Need to talk. Meet me after work. Jonathan's stomach tightened. If Marcus was reaching out like this, the situation was worse than he'd feared. He replied quickly, agreeing to meet. Back at the office, Jonathan went through the motions, but his mind was elsewhere, tangled in thoughts of Vanessa's schemes and the fragility of everything he'd built. By the time the workday ended, he was wound tight, his nerves frayed. He drove to the upscale bar where Marcus had suggested they meet, a quiet spot where their conversation wouldn't be overheard. Marcus was already there, a drink in hand, his expression grim. Jonathan slid into the seat across from him, cutting straight to the point. What's going on? Marcus met his gaze, his voice low and serious. It's bad. John, the rumors are spreading faster than I thought. Some board members are questioning your ability to lead, and it's all tied to Vanessa's narrative. She's pushing the idea that your marriage is causing friction with clients, that you're distracted. Jonathan's fists clenched beneath the table, his pulse pounding, and they're buying it. Marcus nodded reluctantly. Some of them are. They're using it as an excuse to second-guess your decisions. There's even talk of a no-confidence vote if things don't turn around. Jonathan's heart thudded in his chest, the weight of the words sinking in. A no-confidence vote. Are you serious? Marcus's expression was somber, I don't think it'll come to that, not yet. But you need to be ready. Vanessa's coming for you, and she's not holding back. Jonathan took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. What do I do? Marcus leaned forward, his voice steady. You keep doing what you're doing. Stay focused. Stay sharp. Don't give them any reason to doubt you. And talk to the board members you trust. Get ahead of this before it spirals. In the dim light of a quiet bar, Marcus leaned forward, his voice a hushed, urgent whisper. You've got to take charge. Jonathan, show the board you're the one steering this ship focused, unshakable, and fully committed. Start pulling your allies close, the ones who trust you, who believe in your vision. Don't let Vanessa's lies spread unchecked. Jonathan's jaw tightened, a fire igniting in his chest. He nodded, resolve hardening like steel. I'm not backing down. I'll fight this with everything I've got. A faint smile broke across Marcus's face, a spark of hope flickering in his eyes. That's the Jonathan, you know. We'll get through this, but you need to play it smart, strategic. For the next hour, they huddled over their drinks, mapping out a plan. They listed potential boardroom allies, debated how to neutralize Vanessa's growing influence, and crafted a strategy to protect the empire Jonathan had built. By the time they stepped out into the cool night air, Jonathan felt a renewed sense of purpose, his determination sharper than ever. When he walked through the door of his home that night, Amar was there, her steady presence like an anchor in a storm. Her eyes, warm and unwavering, met his as he recounted the conversation with Marcus. Sitting together in the soft glow of their living room, he laid out the plan, and she listened intently, nodding with quiet confidence. We're in this together, she said, her voice a gentle reminder as the day's tension began to melt away. No matter what comes, we face it as a team. Jonathan pulled her close, gratitude swelling in his heart. I couldn't do this without you, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Amar smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. And you don't have to. We'll show them nothing can break us. In that moment, wrapped in each other's strength, the weight of the rumors and the battles ahead felt just a little lighter. They knew the fight was far from over, but together they were ready for whatever lay in wait. The week that followed was a relentless blur of meetings, late-night strategy sessions, and calculated moves. Jonathan worked tirelessly to rally support among the board members, reaching out to those he trusted, those still loyal to his vision. The rumors, fueled by Vanessa's cunning, were like a poison seeping into the foundation of everything he'd built. But he refused to let her win. Amar watched him with a mix of pride and worry. She saw the toll it was taking, the sleepless nights, the tension etched into his shoulders, the way his smile no longer lit up his eyes. She knew how much the company meant to him, how every ounce of his soul had gone into its creation. One evening, after another grueling day, Jonathan came home to find Amar waiting in the kitchen. The table was set for a quiet dinner, candlelight casting a warm, golden glow across the room. A glass of wine sat in her hand, and her smile was soft, though her eyes carried a trace of concern. Hey, she said gently, I thought we could use a night to just breathe. Jonathan managed a tired smile, leaning down to kiss her cheek. You're right, it's been a brutal week. They sat down to eat, and for a while, the conversation was light stories of her day, shared laughter over small, familiar things. But as the meal went on, Amar could see the weight he carried, the strain in his eyes. She reached across the table, her hand finding his. You're doing everything you can, she said softly, but you don't have to carry this alone. Jonathan sighed, his fingers tightening around hers. I know, but it feels like Vanessa's always one step ahead. She's turning people against me faster than I can win them back. Amar's gaze was steady, her voice calm but firm. She's playing on fear, division, manipulation. That's her game. But you've always led with integrity, with respect. That's why people have believed in you all this time, and that's what will pull you through. Her words were like a balm, soothing the jagged edges of his frustration. He looked at her, a flicker of hope stirring. I just hate that she's dragging our marriage into this, making it personal. Amar nodded, her expression softening. I know, but that's why we stay strong together. They ate in thoughtful silence, each lost in their own reflections. As they finished, Jonathan's phone buzzed, breaking the quiet. He glanced at it, his brow furrowing. It's Marcus, he said, opening an email. His eyes scanned the screen, narrowing as he read. What is it? Amar asked, her voice tinged with concern. Jonathan looked up, a mix of surprise and determination in his gaze. Marcus found a connection between Vanessa and Carter Walsh, one of the board members. They've been in contact for months, even before the rumors started. Carter's been feeding her information, helping her undermine me. Amar's eyes widened. Carter Walsh. He's been with the company forever. Exactly, Jonathan said, his voice hardening. Now it makes sense why the rumors spread so fast. He's been working from the inside, sowing doubt. Amar leaned back, her mind racing. If you can prove Carter's colluding with Vanessa, you could discredit them both, but you'll need airtight evidence. Jonathan nodded. Marcus is digging deeper. He's found some emails that hint at their coordination, but we need more. Amar's thoughts spun, a plan forming. What if we could catch them in the act, set a trap to force them to reveal their connection? Jonathan's eyes lit up, a spark of hope igniting. That could work, but we'd have to be careful. If they suspect anything, they'll cover their tracks. Amar nodded, resolute. We'll plan it carefully. If we pull this off, it could change everything. The next few days were a whirlwind of covert preparations. Jonathan and Marcus worked in tandem, gathering evidence without raising suspicion. They enlisted a trusted IT specialist to track communications between Vanessa and Carter, piecing together a damning puzzle. Then an opportunity arose. Carter scheduled a meeting with Jonathan, claiming it was to discuss a new business proposal. Jonathan saw through the pretense it was a chance for Carter to probe, to see how much he knew. He decided to turn the meeting to his advantage, planting subtle hints to rattle Carter into a mistake. The day of the meeting arrived, and Jonathan sat in his office, the familiar surroundings doing little to calm his nerves. But he was ready. Carter walked in, his usual confidence firmly in place. They exchanged pleasantries, and Jonathan kept the conversation light, discussing the proposal as if nothing was amiss. But as the meeting progressed, he steered it toward the rumors. I've been hearing some troubling things, Jonathan said casually, watching Carter closely. Rumors about my leadership, my ability to guide the company. Carter nodded, his expression carefully neutral. Yes, there's been talk. You know how it is, people get nervous when things feel uncertain. True, Jonathan said, leaning back in his chair. But what's odd is how fast these concerns have spread, almost like someone's fanning the flames. Carter's eyes flickered, just for a moment, but it was enough. Jonathan pressed on, his tone still casual but edged with suspicion. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Carter's smile was tight, his composure slipping. Of course not. I'm focused on the company's success, just like you. Jonathan nodded as if satisfied, but inside he knew he had struck a nerve. He pushed further. It's strange, though. I've heard someone close to the board has been in touch with Vanessa Reed. Do you think that could be true? Carter froze, his facade cracking for a split second. I wouldn't know, he said, too quickly. Jonathan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course, probably just a misunderstanding. The meeting ended soon after, but Jonathan knew he'd shaken Carter. As soon as Carter left, he called Marcus, relaying every detail. He's scared, Marcus said, excitement in his voice. We've got him. Over the next few days, Marcus and the IT specialist worked tirelessly, uncovering a series of emails that laid bare Carter and Vanessa's collaboration. Carter had been feeding her sensitive information, and in return, she'd been orchestrating the rumors to destabilize Jonathan's leadership. With the evidence in hand, Jonathan and Marcus prepared to present their findings to the board. The day of the meeting arrived, and Jonathan walked into the boardroom, a mix of nerves and resolve steadying his steps. The room was filled with familiar faces, some supportive, others skeptical. He stood at the head of the table, his voice calm but commanding. I've called this meeting to address the concerns about my leadership. There have been rumors, doubts, and attempts to undermine our work. Today, I'm here to reveal the truth. He nodded to Marcus, who displayed the incriminating emails on a large screen. The board members leaned forward, their expressions shifting from curiosity to shock as they read the messages. These emails, Jonathan continued, show a coordinated effort by Vanessa Reed and Carter Walsh to destabilize our company and my leadership. This isn't just about me, it's an attack on everything we've built. The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation sinking in. Carter, seated at the far end of the table, looked ashen, his usual confidence shattered. Robert, a seasoned board member, spoke up, his voice thick with anger. This is unacceptable. Carter, you've betrayed our trust and jeopardized our future. I move to remove you from the board. Effective immediately, the motion was swiftly seconded, and the board's agreement was unanimous. Carter stood, his face flushed with humiliation. You don't understand, Vanessa. But his protests were ignored, and he was escorted out. As the door closed behind Carter, Jonathan felt a wave of relief. The truth was out, and Vanessa's influence had taken a major hit. Robert turned to Jonathan, his expression serious but warm. Jonathan, we've always respected your leadership. Today only proves why. You have our full support. The other board members nodded, their faith restored. Jonathan smiled, a renewed sense of purpose rising within him. Thank you, he said, his voice filled with gratitude. I'll continue leading with the integrity and vision we've always valued. As the meeting adjourned, Marcus clapped Jonathan on the back, grinning. We did it. John, we turned the tide. Jonathan nodded, his mind already on the next steps. This is just the beginning. Marcus, we've dealt with Carter, but Vanessa's still out there. In the dim light of a quiet bar, Marcus leaned forward, his voice a hushed, urgent whisper. You've got to take charge, Jonathan. Show the board you're the one steering this ship focused, unshakable, and fully committed. Start pulling your allies close, the ones who trust you, who believe in your vision. Don't let Vanessa's lies spread unchecked. Jonathan's jaw tightened, a fire igniting in his chest. He nodded, resolve hardening like steel. I'm not backing down. I'll fight this with everything I've got. A faint smile broke across Marcus's face, a spark of hope flickering in his eyes. That's the Jonathan I know. We'll get through this. But you need to play it smart, strategic. For the next hour, they huddled over their drinks, mapping out a plan. They listed potential boardroom allies, debated how to neutralize Vanessa's growing influence, and crafted a strategy to protect the empire Jonathan had built. By the time they stepped out into the cool night air, Jonathan felt a renewed sense of purpose, his determination sharper than ever. When he walked through the door of his home that night, Imar was there, her steady presence like an anchor in a storm, her eyes warm and unwavering, met his as he recounted the conversation with Marcus. Sitting together in the soft glow of their living room, he laid out the plan and she listened intently, nodding with quiet confidence. We're in this together, she said, her voice a gentle reminder as the day's tension began to melt away. No matter what comes, we face it as a team. Jonathan pulled her close, gratitude swelling in his heart. I couldn't do this without you, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Amar smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. And you don't have to. We'll show them nothing can break us. In that moment, wrapped in each other's strength, the weight of the rumors and the battles ahead felt just a little lighter. They knew the fight was far from over, but together they were ready for whatever lay in wait. The week that followed was a relentless blur of meetings, late-night strategy sessions, and calculated moves. Jonathan worked tirelessly to rally support among the board members, reaching out to those he trusted, those still loyal to his vision. The rumors, fueled by Vanessa's cunning, were like a poison seeping into the foundation of everything he'd built. But he refused to let her win. Amar watched him with a mix of pride and worry. She saw the toll it was taking, the sleepless nights, the tension etched into his shoulders, the way his smile no longer lit up his eyes. She knew how much of the company meant to him, how every ounce of his soul had gone into its creation. One evening, after another grueling day, Jonathan came home to find Amar waiting in the kitchen. The table was set for a quiet dinner, candlelight casting a warm, golden glow across the room. A glass of wine sat in her hand, and her smile was soft, though her eyes carried a trace of concern. "Hey," she said gently, "I thought we could use a night to just breathe." Jonathan managed a tired smile, leaning down to kiss her cheek. "You're right, it's been a brutal week." They sat down to eat, and for a while, the conversation was light stories of her day, shared laughter over small, familiar things. But as the meal went on, Amar could see the weight he carried, the strain in his eyes. She reached across the table, her hand finding his. "You're doing everything you can," she said softly, "but you don't have to carry this alone." Jonathan sighed, his fingers tightening around hers. "I know, but it feels like Vanessa's always one step ahead. She's turning people against me faster than I can win them back." Amar's gaze was steady, her voice calm but firm. "She's playing on fear, division, manipulation. That's her game. But you've always led with integrity, with respect. That's why people have believed in you all this time, and that's what will pull you through." Her words were like a balm, soothing the jagged edges of his frustration. He looked at her, a flicker of hope stirring. "I just hate that she's dragging our marriage into this, making it personal." Amar nodded, her expression softening. "I know, but that's why we stay strong together." They ate in thoughtful silence, each lost in their own reflections. As they finished, Jonathan's phone buzzed, breaking the quiet. He glanced at it, his brow furrowing. "It's Marcus," he said, opening an email. His eyes scanned the screen, narrowing as he read. "What is it?" Amar asked, her voice tinged with concern. Jonathan looked up, a mix of surprise and determination in his gaze. Marcus found a connection between Vanessa and Carter Walsh, one of the board members. They've been in contact for months, even before the rumors started. Carter's been feeding her information, helping her undermine me. Amar's eyes widened. Carter Walsh. He's been with the company forever. "Exactly," Jonathan said, his voice hardening. "Now it makes sense why the rumors spread so fast. He's been working from the inside, sowing doubt." Amar leaned back, her mind racing. "If you can prove Carter's colluding with Vanessa, you could discredit them both, but you'll need airtight evidence." Jonathan nodded. "Marcus is digging deeper. He's found some emails that hint at their coordination. But we need more." Amar's thoughts spun, a plan forming. "What if we could catch them in the act, set a trap to force them to reveal their connection?" Jonathan's eyes lit up, a spark of hope igniting. "That could work, but we'd have to be careful. If they suspect anything, they'll cover their tracks." Amar nodded, resolute. "We'll plan it carefully. If we pull this off, it could change everything." The next few days were a whirlwind of covert preparations. Jonathan and Marcus worked in tandem, gathering evidence without raising suspicion. They enlisted a trusted IT specialist to track communications between Vanessa and Carter, piecing together a damning puzzle. Then an opportunity arose. Carter scheduled a meeting with Jonathan, claiming it was to discuss a new business proposal. Jonathan saw through the pretense it was a chance for Carter to probe, to see how much he knew. He decided to turn the meeting to his advantage, planting subtle hints to rattle Carter into a mistake. The day of the meeting arrived, and Jonathan sat in his office, the familiar surroundings doing little to calm his nerves, but he was ready. Carter walked in, his usual confidence firmly in place. They exchanged pleasantries, and Jonathan kept the conversation light, discussing the proposal as if nothing was amiss. But as the meeting progressed, he steered it toward the rumors. "I've been hearing some troubling things," Jonathan said casually, watching Carter closely. "Rumors about my leadership, my ability to guide the company." Carter nodded, his expression carefully neutral. "Yes, There's been talk. You know how it is, people get nervous when things feel uncertain. True, Jonathan said, leaning back in his chair. But what's odd is how fast these concerns have spread. Almost like someone's fanning the flames. Carter's eyes flickered, just for a moment, but it was enough. Jonathan pressed on, his tone still casual but edged with suspicion. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Carter's smile was tight, his composure slipping. Of course not. I'm focused on the company's success, just like you. Jonathan nodded, as if satisfied. But inside, he knew he'd struck a nerve. He pushed further. It's strange, though. I've heard someone close to the board has been in touch with Vanessa Reed. Do you think that could be true? Carter froze, his facade cracking for a split second. I wouldn't know, he said, too quickly. Jonathan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Of course, probably just a misunderstanding. The meeting ended soon after, but Jonathan knew he'd shaken Carter. As soon as Carter left, he called Marcus, relaying every detail. He's scared, Marcus said, excitement in his voice. We've got him. Over the next few days, Marcus and the IT specialist worked tirelessly, uncovering a series of emails that laid bare Carter and Vanessa's collaboration. Carter had been feeding her sensitive information, and in return, she'd been orchestrating the rumors to destabilize Jonathan's leadership. With the evidence in hand, Jonathan and Marcus prepared to present their findings to the board. The day of the meeting arrived, and Jonathan walked into the boardroom, a mix of nerves and resolve steadying his steps. The room was filled with familiar faces, some supportive, others skeptical. He stood at the head of the table, his voice calm but commanding. I've called this meeting to address the concerns about my leadership. There have been rumors, doubts, and attempts to undermine our work. Today, I'm here to reveal the truth. He nodded to Marcus, who displayed the incriminating emails on a large screen. The board members leaned forward, their expressions shifting from curiosity to shock as they read the messages. These emails, Jonathan continued, show a coordinated effort by Vanessa Reed and Carter Walsh to destabilize our company and my leadership. This isn't just about me, it's an attack on everything we've built. The room fell silent, the weight of the revelation sinking in. Carter, seated at the far end of the table, looked ashen, his usual confidence shattered. Robert, a seasoned board member, spoke up, his voice thick with anger. This is unacceptable. Carter, you've betrayed our trust and kindized our future. I move to remove you from the board, effective immediately. The motion was swiftly seconded, and the board's agreement was unanimous. Carter stood, his face flushed with humiliation. You don't understand Vanessa. But his protests were ignored, and he was escorted out. As the door closed behind Carter, Jonathan felt a wave of relief. The truth was out, and Vanessa's influence had taken a major hit. Robert turned to Jonathan, his expression serious but warm. Jonathan, we've always respected your leadership. Today only proves why. You have our full support. The other board members nodded, their faith restored. Jonathan smiled, a renewed sense of purpose rising within him. Thank you, he said, his voice filled with gratitude. I'll continue leading with the integrity and vision we've always valued. As the meeting adjourned, Marcus clapped Jonathan on the back, grinning. We did it, John. We turned the tide. Jonathan nodded, his mind already on the next steps. This is just the beginning. Marcus, we've dealt with Carter, but Vanessa's still out there. The weight of the past weeks seemed to dissolve as Jonathan stepped out of the boardroom, his heart lighter than it had been in ages. Marcus's grin had dimmed just a touch when he cautioned, we can't let our guard down yet. She's still out there. Jonathan nodded, knowing exactly who Marcus meant. You're right, but tonight let's savor this victory. We earned it. As he drove home through the city's glowing streets, a spark of hope flickered within him, one he hadn't felt in far too long. The rumors, the whispers, the gnawing doubts, they were finally starting to fade, like shadows retreating before dawn. When he walked through the door, Amara was waiting, her smile radiant, as if she already sensed the triumph in his stride. How'd it go, she asked, her eyes searching his. Jonathan didn't answer with words. Instead, he pulled her into a warm embrace, holding her close as if to anchor himself in her strength. "We did it, Amara," he murmured into her hair. "Carter's out, and the board's back in our corner." Amara's arms tightened around him, her relief palpable. "I knew you'd pull through," she said, her voice soft but fierce. "They underestimate you, but you're tougher than they'll ever know." That evening, they celebrated quietly, the tension of the past weeks melting away like ice in the spring sun. Over dinner, they talked about the future dreams they hadn't dared to voice in the chaos of recent days. Jonathan knew the road ahead wouldn't be smooth. Vanessa was still a looming threat, her influence far from broken. But with Amar by his side and the truth as their shield, he felt a quiet confidence. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The fallout from the boardroom showdown rippled through the city's elite like a wildfire racing across dry plains. Within days, the narrative had shifted. Whispers that once painted Jonathan as incompetent now targeted Carter's disgrace and Vanessa's shadowy machinations. But while the professional battle had been won, a new storm was brewing on the social front, one that would test Jonathan and Amara in ways they hadn't anticipated. Determined to reclaim their place in a world that had tried to cast them out, they decided to attend a charity gala hosted by one of the city's most influential families. The event, held in the opulent ballroom of a downtown hotel, was a spectacle of wealth and power, crystal chandeliers casting golden light, champagne flowing freely, and gowns that shimmered like starlight. But beneath the glamour, Jonathan and Amara knew their true purpose: to confront the venomous rumors head-on and prove they belonged. As they stepped into the ballroom, the air seemed to shift. Conversations hushed, and dozens of eyes turned toward them, heavy with curiosity and judgment. Amara, resplendent in an emerald gown that hugged her graceful frame, held her head high, her arm looped through Jonathan's with quiet defiance. She felt the weight of their stares but refused to falter. "Here we go," Jonathan whispered, his voice steady but laced with a hint of nerves. Amara gave his arm a reassuring squeeze. "Let them stare," she said softly. "We've got nothing to hide." They moved through the crowd, exchanging polite nods and smiles with those bold enough to approach. Some greeted them warmly, offering congratulations on their recent boardroom triumph, their smiles genuine. Others were colder, their eyes glinting with envy or disdain, as if Jonathan and Amara's presence was an affront to their carefully curated world. At the far end of the room, near a grand staircase draped in cascading white roses, stood Vanessa. She was flawless as always, her icy composure untouched by the scandal swirling around her. When her gaze met theirs, her eyes narrowed slightly. A silent challenge issued. "Jonathan, Amara." She greeted them as they approached, her smile sharp and thin. "How delightful to see you both out in the world again." Jonathan matched her smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "We wouldn't miss it." "Vanessa?" "Not for anything." Amara kept her expression warm, her tone light. "This is a stunning event," she said. "You've truly outdone yourself." Vanessa tilted her head, accepting the compliment with the grace of someone who expected nothing less. "I do try to keep things lively," she replied, her voice smooth as silk. Before the tension could thicken, a woman in her early 30s, Claire, stepped forward, her blonde hair catching the light. Her smile was forced, her words dripping with condescension. "Amara, how are you settling into city life? It must be quite a change from wherever you're from." The jab was subtle but unmistakable, a reminder that Amara was seen as an outsider. Amara met Claire's gaze unflinchingly. "It's been an adjustment," she said calmly, "but I've always believed flexibility is key. I'm learning to navigate the subtleties." Claire's smile wavered, and Vanessa's eyes flickered with something that might have been respect or calculation. The moment was broken by Marcus's arrival, his easy charm cutting through the tension like a warm breeze. "Jonathan, Amara, you made it," he said, his grin genuine as he clapped Jonathan on the shoulder. He turned to Vanessa, his tone playful but pointed. "Quite the party." "Vanessa, it's almost as if nothing's changed." Her smile tightened, a flash of irritation in her eyes. We don't linger on the past. Marcus, she said coolly, life moves forward. Marcus nodded, his tone just as smooth. It does, but some things are harder to forget. Jonathan bit back a smile, grateful for Marcus's deft handling of the situation. The air between them crackled, but Marcus's presence tipped the scales in their favor. As the evening unfolded, Amara sensed a shift. Marcus wasn't their only ally. Others began to approach, some with cautious warmth, others with genuine curiosity, offering small gestures of support, a shared laugh, a kind word, a subtle nod. Not everyone had bought into Vanessa's narrative. Some saw the strength it had taken for Jonathan and Amara to stand their ground, and they respected it. But the night wasn't without its thorns. As Amara moved through the crowd, she caught fragments of whispered conversations, veiled criticisms of her background, snide remarks about her place as Jonathan's wife, murmurs that things had been better before she arrived. Each comment was a small wound, a reminder that their victory in the boardroom hadn't erased the prejudice embedded in this world. Needing a moment to regroup, Amara excused herself and slipped into the restroom. As she touched up her makeup in front of the mirror, two women entered, their voices sharp with disdain. Can you believe she's here after everything one said? She doesn't belong, the other replied. Marrying him was one thing, but acting like she's one of us. It's laughable. Amara's hand paused, her reflection steady despite the storm brewing inside. She'd faced this her entire life, the sidelong glances, the assumptions, the insistence that she was other. But tonight, Otaman, after all she and Jonathan had endured, the words stung deeper. She took a slow breath, grounding herself. These women didn't define her. She belonged here, not because of their approval, but because she and Jonathan had chosen each other. As she stepped out of the restroom, she nearly collided with Vanessa, who stood just outside, her expression unreadable. They're not entirely wrong, you know, Vanessa said, her voice low and cutting. You don't fit in here. Amara held her gaze, unflinching. Belonging isn't yours to decide. Vanessa, she said evenly, I'm here because I choose to be, and because Jonathan chooses me. That's enough. Without waiting for a response, Amara walked past her, her shoulders squared, rejoining Jonathan. She slipped her hand into his, her smile genuine despite the encounter. Everything okay, he asked, concern flickering in his eyes. Everything's fine, she said, her voice warm. Let's make the most of this night. They spent the next hour mingling, their confidence a quiet rebuke to the whispers and stares. Slowly, the room began to soften toward them. People approached with real interest, asking about Amara's background, her thoughts on the city, her plans. The icy barrier that had greeted them was thawing, replaced by a reluctant admiration for the couple who had faced adversity and emerged unbroken. As the gala drew to a close, Vanessa approached them one final time, her composure as impeccable as ever. You've certainly left an impression, she said, her tone neutral but laced with an undercurrent of grudging respect. Jonathan met her gaze steadily. We're just being ourselves. Vanessa, it's all we've ever done. Her smile was cold, her words a warning. This world has a long memory. Jonathan, today's triumph doesn't secure tomorrow's. Jonathan's smile matched hers, unwavering. We know, Vanessa, and we're ready for what's next. Vanessa's eyes flicked to Amara, who returned her stare without blinking. After a moment, Vanessa gave a slight nod, a silent acknowledgement of the battle waged and, for now, won. As she glided away, Amara exhaled, the tension easing from her shoulders. Jonathan squeezed her hand, his voice soft. We held our own tonight. Amara nodded, a quiet pride swelling within her. We did. But it's not over. Is it? Jonathan's expression turned thoughtful. No. But we're stronger now. We've shown them we won't be pushed aside. As they stepped out into the cool night air, the city sprawling before them, Amara felt a sense of peace settle over her. The path ahead was uncertain, the challenges far from over, but for the first time, she felt truly prepared. Hand in hand, they drove home, the city lights twinkling like stars in the distance. No matter how fierce the storm, their bond was unbreakable, their love a force stronger than any judgment or prejudice. The morning after the gala, the city was alive with chatter. News outlets dissected every detail of the event, from the dazzling guest list to the undercurrents of tension that had pulsed through the ballroom. Jonathan and Amara, now at the center of the narrative, faced a world still watching, still judging, but together, they were ready to meet it head-on, their hearts fortified by the trials they'd already overcome. Jonathan had grown accustomed to the relentless gaze of public scrutiny, but this time something felt different. The air carried a subtle shift, as if the winds of public opinion were finally beginning to turn in his favor. Over a leisurely breakfast, he sat at the polished oak table, scrolling through his phone, his eyes scanning the latest headlines. The articles, once sharp with criticism, now painted him and his wife, Amara, in a softer light, a couple who had weathered storms of adversity with unwavering dignity and resilience. Amara, cradling her steaming coffee mug, caught the faint curve of a smile on his lips. "Good news?" she asked, her voice tinged with cautious hope. Jonathan turned his phone toward her, revealing a headline that praised their grace under pressure. "Looks like the media is finally starting to see things our way," he said, his tone warm but guarded. "Even some of our harshest critics are easing up." Amara leaned in, her eyes skimming the article. She nodded thoughtfully, a small spark of relief in her expression. "That's something," she murmured. But her relief was short-lived as she added, "Vanessa's not going to sit quietly and let this happen." At the mention of Vanessa, Jonathan's face clouded over. "You're right," he said, his voice tightening. "She's been too silent lately." "That's never a good sign," as if summoned by their words. His phone buzzed sharply, interrupting the moment. An email from Marcus, marked urgent, flashed on the screen. Jonathan's fingers moved swiftly to open it, his eyes narrowing as he read. Amara, sensing the shift in his mood, set her coffee down. "What is it?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with concern. Jonathan's frown deepened. "Marcus says Vanessa's hosting an exclusive luncheon next week, a private event with the city's most powerful players, business tycoons, politicians, you name it. It's being sold as a charity gala, but Marcus thinks it's a front. She's rallying her allies to undermine us again." Amara's mind raced, her instincts kicking into high gear. "We can't let her control the story," she said firmly, her eyes flashing with determination. "We need to be there." Jonathan nodded, his jaw set. "Agreed, but it's invitation only, and we're not on the list." Amara's gaze hardened. "Then we'll find a way in," she said, her voice resolute. "We can't let her manipulate things from the shadows." The days that followed were a whirlwind of strategy and preparation. Jonathan and Amara worked hand in hand with Marcus, their trusted confidant, plotting how to infiltrate Vanessa's carefully guarded event. This wasn't just about gate-crashing a fancy lunch. It was about ensuring their voices were heard in the high-stakes conversations that would shape public perception. They knew Vanessa would stop at nothing to sway the city's elite back to her side, and they couldn't afford to be caught off guard. On the morning of the luncheon, Marcus pulled off a small miracle, securing a last-minute invitation for Jonathan by posing as a potential donor. Amara, however, was forced to stay behind due to the event's tightly controlled guest list. It was a risky plan, and the weight of it hung heavily between them as they parted ways. The luncheon was held at a sprawling, opulent estate just outside the city, a fortress of wealth and influence tucked behind towering iron gates and pristine gardens. Jonathan arrived in a sharply tailored suit, his demeanor calm but razor-sharp, every sense attuned to the power dynamics at play. Stepping through the grand entrance, he scanned the room. The city's elite were all their moguls, lawmakers, and socialites, mingling under crystal chandeliers. Vanessa stood near the doorway, her icy charm on full display as she greeted guests with practiced elegance. When her eyes landed on Jonathan, her smile remained flawless, but a flicker of surprise betrayed her composure. She hadn't expected him to slip through her defenses. Jonathan, she said smoothly, extending a manicured hand. What a surprise. I didn't think you'd be joining us. Jonathan shook her hand, his grip firm, his smile laced with quiet defiance. I wouldn't miss it, he replied. Supporting a good cause is always worth my time. Vanessa's eyes glinted with a subtle challenge. Of course, she said, her voice like silk over steel. I'm sure you'll find today's discussions illuminating. The luncheon unfolded with all the trappings of high society polished speeches about charity, clinking glasses, and the hum of networking. But beneath the surface, Jonathan could feel the undercurrent of tension, the unspoken power plays rippling through the room. Vanessa glided through the crowd, her every word calculated, her charm a weapon she wielded with precision. Jonathan knew she was working the room, reinforcing her alliances and sowing seeds of doubt about him and Amara. When Vanessa took the stage for her speech, the room fell silent. She spoke with eloquence about unity and community, her words carefully crafted to seem noble. But Jonathan caught the subtext. She was subtly framing him and Amara as outsiders, disruptors threatening the city's cherished traditions. Some guests nodded in agreement, their faces grave, while others glanced at Jonathan with curiosity or skepticism. The room was a battleground of loyalties, and Vanessa was fighting to tip the scales. As polite applause followed her speech, Jonathan knew he had to act. He approached a small group of guests who had seemed most receptive to Vanessa's message, including Richard, a prominent real estate magnate, and Lydia, a respected philanthropist. Vanessa's passion is undeniable, Jonathan began, his tone measured but engaging. But I believe true strength comes from embracing change, not resisting it. Our city has always thrived by pushing boundaries, by welcoming new ideas. That's what keeps us vibrant. Richard raised an eyebrow, his skepticism clear. Change can be risky. Jonathan, we've built something solid here. Why gamble with it? Jonathan met his gaze evenly. It's not about gambling, it's about adapting. Change is coming whether we like it or not. The question is how we shape it to benefit everyone. Amara and I believe in building bridges, not barriers. We've faced our share of challenges, but they've only deepened our commitment to this community. Lydia, thoughtful, nodded slowly. I've seen the work you and Amara have done. She said, it's impressive, but some feel threatened by the pace of change, especially when it challenges social norms. Jonathan understood the unspoken prejudice she was referencing, the quiet resistance he and Amara had faced. I hear that, he said carefully, but a community's strength lies in how it embraces those who are different, how it grows through new perspectives. That's what will carry us forward. As the conversation unfolded, Jonathan sensed a shift. Richard's guarded expression softened, and Lydia seemed to weigh his words with genuine consideration. It was a small victory, but he knew Vanessa's influence ran deep, and one conversation wouldn't undo her sway. Meanwhile, outside the estate, Amara waited in the car, her nerves taut. She was used to standing shoulder to shoulder with Jonathan, and being sidelined felt like a betrayal of their partnership. As the minutes dragged on, her phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Keep an eye on the media tonight. Vanessa's pulling strings. Amara's stomach twisted. If Vanessa was already orchestrating a media blitz, whatever happened at the luncheon could be twisted to fit her narrative. They needed to be ready. When Jonathan finally emerged, his expression told Amara everything tense, but hopeful. He recounted the conversations, the small inroads he'd made with key players. But when she showed him Marcus's message, his face darkened. She's already moving, he said grimly. We need to be prepared. That evening, as they sat in their living room, the news confirmed their fears. Headlines screamed of division among the city's elite, with subtle jabs at Jonathan and Amara's unconventional marriage and bold business moves. Vanessa had wasted no time spinning her narrative, but Jonathan and Amara weren't backing down. They reached out to Marcus, who was already mobilizing their allies, drafting press statements, and preparing to counter Vanessa's attacks. This wasn't just about one event, it was a fight for their future and the values they held dear. Inclusion, progress, unity. As they worked late into the night, Amara felt a fire reignite within her. Vanessa might have struck, but the battle was far from over. Jonathan caught her eye, his expression resolute. "We've come too far to let her win," he said. Amara nodded, her voice steady. "We're in this together." Jonathan, always. Outside, the city lights glittered, a reminder of the stakes. The road ahead would be grueling, but together, they were unstoppable. The next morning, the media frenzy continued. Vanessa's influence, evident in every carefully worded segment, words like controversy and unrest peppered the coverage, casting shadows over Jonathan's leadership and Amara's place by his side. From their penthouse, Jonathan stood by the window, phone in hand, scrolling through the barrage of articles. Amara joined him, handing him a fresh cup of coffee. "Any luck?" she asked, though his furrowed brow told her the answer. "Not enough," Jonathan admitted, his voice tight. "Vanessa's got the media eating out of her hand. They're running with her story, painting us as troublemakers." Amara took a deep breath, letting the frustration settle before responding. "Then we need to shift the conversation," she said. "If we can rally the right voices, people who believe in us, we can turn this around." Jonathan nodded, her words sparking a plan. "You're right, but it's going to take more than a few calls. We need to be strategic." They spent the morning mapping out their next steps, compiling a list of allies, business leaders, community organizers, influencers who could amplify their message. Each name was a potential counterweight to Vanessa's divisive rhetoric, a chance to steer the narrative toward unity and progress. By noon, Jonathan and Amara were deep in their mission, phones pressed to their ears, reaching out to allies who could help turn the tide. Jonathan dialed up business contacts and industry veterans, his voice steady but urgent, while Amara connected with grassroots organizers and social media influencers who held sway over diverse crowds. Every call was unique, crafted to resonate with the person on the other end. Yet the core message burned bright. They had to unite against the toxic forces trying to pull their city back into a divisive, outdated mindset. Jonathan's first call went to Robert Klein, a seasoned financier and mentor who'd guided him through the rocky early days of his career. Robert was a pillar in the business world, his calm wisdom earning him respect across the city. "Robert, I need your support," Jonathan said after a warm exchange of greetings. "Vanessa's stirring up trouble, using the media to paint us as the enemy. She's trying to drag us all backward." A heavy silence hung on the line before Robert responded, his tone measured. "I've seen the headlines, Jonathan. It's a messy fight. What exactly do you need?" Jonathan leaned forward, his words earnest. "I need you to go public. Your voice carries weight. People trust you. If you back us, it could shift the narrative." Robert exhaled, the gravity of the request sinking in. "You're asking me to step into the crossfire, Jonathan. This could cost me some alliances." Jonathan nodded, though Robert couldn't see it. "I know it's a lot, but this isn't just about me or Amara. It's about standing up to the kind of thinking that's choking our progress. We can't let fear win." After a long pause, Robert's voice softened. "All right, Jonathan, I'm in. But brace yourself, Vanessa won't let this slide." Jonathan thanked him, a spark of relief easing the knot in his chest. It was a small victory, but a crucial one. Meanwhile, Amara was on the line with Carmen Morales, a fiery activist whose nonprofit championed racial justice and community empowerment. Carmen's platform was massive, her words capable of swaying thousands. "Carmen, you've seen what's going on," Amara said, diving straight in. "Vanessa's using her influence to push a narrative that's as old as it is harmful. We need voices like yours to show there's another side." Carmen's response was sharp, laced with outrage. "It's infuriating, Amara. She's weaponizing fear and division, but you know they'll target anyone who stands with you." Amara's voice held firm. "I know the risks, but we can't back down. This fight is bigger than Jonathan and me. It's about proving there's a place for everyone in this city, no matter who they are." Carmen paused, then spoke with fierce resolve. "You're right, we'd have got to push back, and we'll do it together." I'll make a statement and get others on board. You've got my support." Amara smiled, feeling the momentum build. With every call, their coalition grew stronger. Influential figures began to speak out, penning opinion pieces, posting on social media, and giving interviews that challenged Vanessa's divisive rhetoric. The city's mood was shifting, but Jonathan and Amara knew playing defense wouldn't be enough. They needed to seize the narrative. That afternoon, they huddled with Marcus, their sharp-minded strategist, in their office's sleek conference room. Marcus spread a stack of papers across the table, his eyes alight with purpose. "Vanessa's trying to make this personal, but we need to zoom out," he said. "This isn't about you two. It's about the city's future. We position you as the leaders driving progress, celebrating diversity as our strength." Jonathan scanned the documents, nodding. "How do we do that without looking like we're just reacting to her?" Marcus grinned, his confidence infectious. "We go big. We host a public event, a massive celebration of unity that brings everyone together. It'll show the city what we're fighting for." Amara's eyes lit up. A unity festival, right in the heart of the city. Something vibrant, inclusive. That proves we're not just surviving, we're thriving. Marcus snapped his fingers. "Exactly. We invite the media, community leaders, everyone. This isn't just a counterpunch, it's a declaration of who we are." The plan came together swiftly. They chose a sprawling park at the city's core, a historic gathering spot where people from all backgrounds cross paths. The theme, unity and diversity, would celebrate the city's rich cultural tapestry. Over the next week, they poured their energy into the event, sending invitations, coordinating logistics, and spreading the word through social media and local news. The response was electric, with residents eager to rally behind a vision of inclusion and progress. On the day of the event, the park burst with life. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and a stage stood ready for speeches and performances. Food trucks lined the edges, offering everything from spicy tacos to fragrant curries, a delicious nod to the city's diversity. The air buzzed with excitement. But beneath the festivity was a shared resolve, a collective stand for the values Jonathan and Amara championed. As the crowd swelled, the couple wove through the park, shaking hands and exchanging smiles with friends, allies, and strangers inspired by their cause. When the time came for speeches, Jonathan stepped onto the stage, gazing out at a sea of faces that mirrored the city's vibrant mosaic. Pride surged through him. "Thank you for being here," he began, his voice ringing clear. "Today, we're celebrating what makes this city extraordinary: our diversity, our courage to embrace change, and our commitment to a future where everyone belongs. We've heard a lot lately about division, about challenges trying to pull us apart. But I believe those challenges will only make us stronger if we face them together." The crowd roared, and Jonathan paused, letting the energy wash over him. "Amara and I have faced our share of battles, just like many of you. Prejudice, exclusion, resistance to change, these aren't new. But today, we're saying those days are over. We're moving forward, together." Amara joined him, her presence drawing another wave of cheers. She took the microphone, her voice brimming with conviction. "This city is our home, and it belongs to every one of us. Here, differences aren't just accepted, they're celebrated. We're not just building a future for ourselves, but for everyone who believes in the power of unity." The applause was thunderous, a testament to the crowd's shared passion. The event rolled on with vibrant performances, singers, dancers, poets, all showcasing the city's creative spirit. Community leaders took the stage, their words reinforcing the message of hope and resilience. By dusk, the event had become a triumph. Media outlets churned out glowing coverage, spotlighting the unity and optimism Jonathan and Amara had ignited. They hadn't just weathered Vanessa's attacks, they'd transformed the moment into a powerful statement, rallying the city behind them. As they strolled through the park one last time, hand in hand, they knew the battle wasn't over. But with the city's support pulsing around them, they felt unstoppable. The days following the event hummed with optimism. Headlines praised the couple's vision, and the city seemed to breathe easier, embracing the inclusive future they championed. But Vanessa wasn't one to retreat. A week later, as Jonathan and Amara began to settle into a cautious rhythm, the first signs of her counterattack emerged. Late one evening, Jonathan scrolled through his phone, his brow furrowing at cryptic social media posts from accounts tied to Vanessa's inner circle. They hinted at a looming scandal, something to expose the couple's rise. "Amara, look at this," he said, passing her the phone. "She's planning something." Amara's jaw tightened as she read. "She's desperate. She knows she's losing ground, so she's resorting to smears. But what could she have on us?" Jonathan shook his head, unease creeping in. "I don't know, but we need to stay ahead of her." The next morning, Marcus called them to an urgent meeting. His face was grim as he laid out the situation. "Vanessa's digging into your pasts, looking for anything she can twist to hurt you," he said. "She's got a team spinning stories, and they're not above faking evidence." Jonathan's eyes narrowed. "We've been careful. Marcus, there's nothing to find." Marcus sighed. "It's not about truth, it's about perception. She'll craft a narrative to make you look bad. We need to be ready for anything." They brainstormed defenses, hiring a crisis management team, securing legal counsel, and warning their allies about Vanessa's tactics. The fight was far from over, but Jonathan and Amara were ready to face it, backed by a city that believed in their vision. The storm was brewing, and Jonathan could feel it in his bones. As the board meeting wrapped up, the weight of Vanessa's looming attack pressed heavily on his mind. He'd always known she was cunning, but this level of malice was something else entirely, a calculated strike aimed at dismantling everything he and Amara had built. Glancing at Amara, her face etched with worry, he placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We'll get through this," he said, his voice firm with resolve. "We've faced tougher battles and come out on top." Amara gave a small nod, but the shadow of doubt lingered in her eyes. "We have to be prepared for anything, Jonathan. Vanessa isn't just out to hurt us, she wants to obliterate everything we stand for." Over the next few days, the air crackled with tension. Jonathan and Amara's team worked tirelessly, analyzing every whisper of Vanessa's movements, chasing down rumors that slipped through their fingers like smoke. But her plans remained cloaked in secrecy, casting a suffocating dread over their operation. Then, on the fifth day, the blow landed. Early that morning, as Jonathan and Amara sat at home, a notorious tabloid unleashed a scathing article accusing Jonathan of insider trading. The claims were pure fiction, propped up by forged documents crafted by Vanessa's team. The piece dripped with salacious details, painting Jonathan as a greedy CEO who'd betrayed his investors for personal gain. Within hours, the story spread like a wildfire, fueled by other media outlets and amplified across social media. Vanessa's allies gleefully shared the article, weaving their own embellishments into the narrative. The reputation Jonathan and Amara had painstakingly built was now under siege. Jonathan sat at his desk, staring at the article on his screen. His phone buzzed relentlessly, but he ignored it. The words before him feeling like a stranger's story, not the life he'd forged through years of integrity. Amara burst into the room, her face drained of color. "Jonathan, the phones won't stop. Investors are in a panic, and the board's demanding an emergency meeting." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I knew she'd hit hard, but this, it's a gut punch. We need to move fast before this spirals further." They raced to the office where Marcus, their trusted ally, was already orchestrating a response. The legal team drafted a statement refuting the accusations, while the crisis management team scrambled to counter the toxic narrative. But Vanessa's seed of doubt had taken root, and uprooting it would be a Herculean task. As the day unfolded, the pressure intensified. Investors threatened to pull out, and the company's stock plummeted. The board, rattled by the potential fallout, demanded answers. Jonathan spent hours on calls, trying to reassure them, but their unease was palpable. Amara, meanwhile, reached out to their allies Carmen Morales, Robert Clean, and others who'd stood by them before pleading for public support. Though they agreed to help, Their voices carried a hesitation, a fear of being tainted by the scandal. By evening, Jonathan and Amara collapsed in their living room, drained. Their home, once a haven, felt heavy with the day's chaos. "This is worse than I feared," Amara whispered, her voice trembling. "She's tearing our world apart." Jonathan took her hand, his grip steady. "We'll fight back. Amara, we'll clear our names and expose the truth. It's going to be a long road, but we're not giving up." The silence that followed was heavy, the reality of their battle sinking in. Vanessa's lies had fractured the unity they'd celebrated just days ago. But Jonathan and Amara refused to crumble. They'd fought too hard, come too far, to let her schemes destroy them. The war for their reputation, their company, and their future had only just begun. The next morning, the city buzzed with uncertainty. Vanessa's scandal dominated the headlines, and Jonathan and Amara's legacy teetered on the edge. Rather than retreat, they chose to confront the crisis head-on, knowing this might be their last shot to shift the tide. The day kicked off with a tense board meeting. Facing a room of anxious board members, some visibly shaken, Jonathan and Amara stood resolute. He spoke first, his voice steady but urgent. "I know you're all worried, and I hear you. These accusations are baseless. A vicious attack meant to tear down everything we've built, but we won't let it succeed." A board member, his hair streaked with gray, leaned forward. "Jonathan, the evidence they've shown is convincing. Even if it's fake, the damage is done, that investors are panicking, and our stock is tanking. How do you fix this?" "We're already on it," Jonathan replied, glancing at Marcus, who nodded. "Our legal team is compiling proof to debunk these lies, and we're preparing a public statement to set the record straight. But this isn't just about defense, it's about showing the world what this attack really is, a desperate move by someone threatened by our progress." Amara stepped in, her voice calm but resolute. "This fight isn't just about us or our company. It's about the future we're building, one that embraces change and inclusivity. Vanessa wants to drag us backward because she fears what we represent. We can't let fear win. We have to stand tall and prove we're not backing down." The room fell silent, Amara's words resonating. A board member, a woman in her late 50s, spoke up. "I've been with this company since the start, and I've seen the incredible work you've both done. We've survived storms before, and we'll survive this. You have my support." One by one, the others voiced their agreement, though some were less enthusiastic. It wasn't unanimous confidence, but it was enough to move forward. Back in their office, Marcus laid out the next steps. "We're holding a press conference this afternoon. You'll both address the allegations directly, and we'll present evidence to dismantle their claims. I've also lined up key allies to back you publicly." Jonathan nodded, a spark of determination igniting. "Good. We need to be bold and clear. We're not just defending ourselves, we're exposing Vanessa for who she is." The hours before the press conference were a whirlwind. The legal team finalized their evidence. The communications team crafted a compelling statement, and Jonathan and Amara rehearsed their speeches, sharpening their message until it cut like a blade. When the moment arrived, the conference hall in the city center was packed with reporters, cameras flashing, and a restless crowd murmuring. Outside, protesters clashed some waving signs in support of Jonathan and Amara, others echoing Vanessa's lies. Flanked by Marcus and their legal team, Jonathan and Amara took the stage, a united front against the chaos. Jonathan spoke first, his voice carrying across the room. "Thank you for being here. There's been a flood of misinformation these past few days, and I'm here to set the record straight. The accusations against me are false, part of a deliberate attack to undermine not just me, but the values our company and this city stand for." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "We've gathered evidence that proves my innocence beyond doubt, and we'll pursue legal action against those behind this smear. But this isn't just about clearing my name, it's about standing up for what's right. We won't let lies and fear shape our future." Amara stepped forward, her voice steady yet passionate. "This fight is bigger than us. It's about the kind of city we want to build, one that values diversity, progress, and unity. Vanessa and her allies want to pull us back to a time of division and mistrust, but we won't let them. We're fighting for the future we believe in, and we will win. Marcus followed, presenting a meticulously compiled dossier documents, financial records, and witness statements that expose the accusations as a fabrication or as orchestrated by Vanessa's team. The reporters scribbled furiously, the narrative beginning to shift. When they opened the floor to questions, the tension spiked. Reporters fired off inquiries, some skeptical, others supportive. Jonathan and Amara answered with poise, reinforcing their commitment to transparency and integrity. One journalist, her tone sharp, pressed Jonathan, even if these allegations are disproven, the damage to your reputation is real. How will you rebuild trust with investors and the public? Jonathan didn't flinch. Trust is earned through actions, not promises. We've always operated with honesty, and we'll keep doing so. The truth will come out, and we'll emerge stronger. We're not just fighting for our reputation, we're fighting for the principles that define us, and those haven't wavered. The press conference stretched nearly an hour, and by the end, Jonathan and Amara had seized control of the story. The reporters left with a new narrative, one of resilience, defiance, and truth. As they stepped off the stage, the weight of the battle still lingered, but for the first time in days, there was a glimmer of hope. The fight was far from over, but they had drawn a line in the sand, ready to reclaim their legacy and expose Vanessa's schemes for what they were. That evening, Jonathan and Amara collapsed onto their cozy living room sofa, weary but buoyed by a sense of triumph. The day had been a crucible, a pivotal moment where they seized control of their narrative and dismantled the web of deceit spun by Vanessa. Amara, sprawled across the couch, flashed a weary but radiant smile. "We did it," she said, her voice tinged with exhaustion and pride. "We're not in the clear yet, but we've shifted the current in our favor." Jonathan leaned back, a heavy burden easing from his shoulders. He nodded, his eyes gleaming with resolve. Vanessa came at us with everything she had, and yet here we are, still standing tall. She thought she could break us, but she miscalculated. Now she's the one scrambling to regain her footing. As they sat, replaying the day's victories in their minds, a sharp knock echoed through the room. The door swung open and Marcus strode in, his face lit with excitement as he clutched a tablet. "You've got to see this," he said, thrusting the device toward them. The screen glowed with fresh headlines from major news outlets, each one heralding the success of their press conference. "The tide's turning," Marcus continued, his voice brimming with optimism. "The stories everywhere how you two exposed Vanessa's vicious smear campaign. People are starting to see through her lies, and the momentum is firmly on our side." Jonathan took the tablet, his eyes scanning the cascade of articles. The coverage was a stark contrast to the venomous reports that had plagued them just days before. Now the press celebrated their courage, their unity, and their unwavering commitment to the truth. Commentators praised the strength they'd shown under pressure, painting them as beacons of integrity in a storm of falsehoods. Amara peered over his shoulder, her heart swelling at the words. "This is huge," she murmured, "but we can't let our guard down. Vanessa's not the type to slink away quietly." "You're right," Jonathan agreed, his tone cautious but laced with hope. "She's down, but she's not out. We've got to keep pressing forward, keep building on this wave of support. We're showing this city who we really are, and we won't let her drag us back into the shadows." Amara nodded, her jaw set with determination. "We've fought too hard to let her win now. We'll keep pushing, keep proving to everyone what we stand for." As the night deepened, a quiet calm settled over the room. The battle was far from won, but for the first time in weeks, Jonathan and Amara allowed themselves a moment to breathe. They had faced Vanessa's fiercest onslaught and emerged not just unscathed, but stronger, their spirits unbroken. The city outside their window hummed with life, and they knew the fight for its future and their own was still raging. But they also knew they were ready. In the days that followed, Jonathan and Amara threw themselves back into their work, Undaunted by the challenges that lay ahead, their story rippled through the city, becoming a powerful symbol of resilience and grit. People began to talk not just about their defiance in the face of lies, but about the vision they offered, the hope they inspired. Vanessa, once a towering figure, found her influence crumbling. Every move she made to tear them down only strengthened the city's resolve to stand behind Jonathan and Amara, recognizing them as the leaders who could steer their community toward a brighter tomorrow. Standing together one evening, gazing out at the twinkling skyline of the city they cherished, Jonathan and Amara felt the weight of their journey. The road ahead was long, and Vanessa's shadow still loomed. But they were no longer just fighting to survive, they were fighting for something greater. They had each other, their steadfast allies, and a growing chorus of voices from the city that believed in their cause. And in that moment, they understood a profound truth: no lie, no matter how vicious, could ever overpower the strength of their unity and the faith of those who stood with them.